The Spector, Part 3. The Search Party. Tuesday, October 27th, 1998, at 4:17 p.m. We made our way down Cross Street, through the intersection where Cross and Travis meet, and continued until we got to Cow Creek Road, one of the main streets in our town. Jen got into the left turning lane and waited on the light. So what are you into? I said timidly while we waited for the light to turn green. What? She said humorously. Well, I know you went to Callaway for, I assume, the last 2 years. I know you had a class with Johnny. I know you moved into the old Barker house. And it sounds like you also like Green Day. Other than that, I don't really know you, I replied. I guess that's true. We haven't really had a chance to sit down and get to know each other. Ask away, Marky. I'm an open book. Oh, I don't know. We both looked at each other and started to laugh. Wow, I guess this is harder than I thought, I said. Well, how about you? How did you and Johnny meet? Well, we met when we were in middle school, I replied. He liked skateboarding and he also liked playing video games. I don't know, we just sort of clicked. Interesting, she said as the light flicked from red to green. We made a left-hand turn onto Cow Creek Road and headed south towards Maine. Did you also go to Downey Middle? I asked. No, she said. I was homeschooled from kindergarten until 8th grade. I guess my mom either got sick of me or they wanted me to make some friends. I don't know, take your pick. Anyways, I enjoyed Callaway, but I just never seemed to fit in with the others, I guess you could say. What do you mean? I asked, puzzled. Well, I guess all those years of homeschooling, while convenient for me, kind of made me suck at social skills. My therapist says that it's not too uncommon for things like that to happen to homeschooled kids. I think it was her who actually suggested to my parents that I go to a regular high school. Oh, I said timidly. You're in therapy? Just because I have someone to talk to, Mark, doesn't mean I'm crazy. Oh, it's not that. I'm just messing with you, Marky, she said. Oh, as a sudden feeling of relief rushed through my body. Hey, my turn is coming up, and the house is just after the turn. Can we put a pin in it for now? She asked. Sure, I said as she flipped on the right turn blinker and turned down Claymore Street, then flipped her blinker on again and turned left into a driveway with a moving truck backed into it. The house was a 2-story brick house with these brownish shutters on each window and a 2-car garage. Nice place, I thought to myself. We exited the car and she started making her way to the door that was on the inside of the garage. Are you coming? She asked. Oh, I didn't know if you wanted me to. Just come on, she said. We made our way through the door. Mom? Christopher? Who's Christopher? I said. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my stepdad's name. Oh, I thought you said he was your dad. I mean, he may as well be, she said. They got together after my parents split, but it was okay. It was a mutual thing, and they all get along fine. Oh, well, best case scenario then, I said with an intrigued tone to my voice. Very much so, she said. My dad still comes and visits fairly often. He moved more north about 5 years ago when he took his job. I go up there a lot in the summer, and when I can, hey Marie, who's your friend? A woman, who I assume was Jen's mom, said as she made her way into the room. Hi, I'm Mark. Are you Jen's mom? I am. It's nice to meet you, Mark. Do you also go to Downey? She asked. Yes, ma'am, I replied. Oh, sweetheart, don't ma'am me, but you have great manners. Don't forget those. Yes, miss. It suddenly came to me that I didn't know Jen or her mom's last name. Miss Rice, Jen chimed in. Oh, well, it's nice to meet you, Miss Rice. You too, dear. Well, what are you two up to? Miss Rice said. We're going to... Hey, Jen, a voice exclaimed. Dad, Jen said back. as she began to speed walk up to a man who was at least 6'5". She embraced him tightly and the two exchanged a hug. "What are you doing here?" Jen said excitedly. "Oh, I heard your mom and Chris were moving and I had a few days off I needed to burn, so I figured I'd come help out. Who's this?" he said. "Oh, this is Mark, a friend from school." "Hey, Mark. I'm Clayton Reed. You can call me Clayton, Mr. Reed, whatever you prefer." He approached me and extended his hand out, and I shook it. "Where's Chris?" Jen asked. "Oh, he ran out to the store to grab a few more supplies. We're just working on getting some of the holes patched up," Miss Rice said. "Holes?" I said. "Yes, from pictures, you know." "Oh, for some reason I thought you just had a bunch of giant holes in your wall." The three gave me kind of a puzzled look and then started laughing. "Oh, you're too funny, sweetheart," Miss Rice said. "Do you two want to stick around for dinner? There isn't much here, but I could always whip something up, or I could call in a pizza." "We can't, Mom," Jen said. "We're going out to Hyde Park," Jen replied. "Oh, are you two going to help look for that boy? God, I can't believe that happening right next to your new house, Denise," Mr. Reed said. "Oh, I know, they're poor parents. I just hope they find the boy safe," Miss Rice said. "Yeah, we're headed there, but came here to grab some flashlights and things. We're also picking up Johnny Ibanez." "There's a name I haven't heard in a long time. He was a strange boy, but he was also very sweet," Miss Rice said. "Well, the flashlights are in the garage. Make sure you grab a coat, too. They said the rain is done, but you can never be too careful," Mr. Reed said. "Thank you. I love you guys. I'll be home, well, the new home, later." "Okay, you two be careful, and it was nice to meet you, Mark," Miss Reed said. "It was nice to meet you as well. And you, Mr. Reed." "Be careful, you two," he reiterated. Jen and I then made our way back out into the garage, dug through a brown box labeled camping, and fished out a few flashlights and a couple extra batteries. I flicked mine on and off, and it worked. Jen did the same. Then we made our way back to the car, opened the doors, and got in. "Where does Johnny live?" Jen asked. "Oh, he's not far from Hyde, just a few blocks down on Strode Street. Just take a left back onto Main and go down about 3 blocks," I said back. "You told me this. Sounds good." She shifted the red Volvo into reverse and made her way down the block. "Want to listen to some music?" she said. "Sure," I said as she flipped on the radio. "2 more bodies were found and mutilated earlier today. The bodies of..." Jen clicked the radios off. "Jesus, 2 more people?" Jen said with a shocked expression. "What on earth is going on?" she said shortly after. "I don't know, but I hope they could solve it quickly," I said. "No, there's no way," I thought to myself. There's no way that this thing is back." "Hey, which turn is it?" Jen asked. "Your next right," I said. Jen began to slowly touch the brake, flipped on the turn signal, and made a right onto Strode Street. "It'll be the 4th house on the right," I said as Jen slowly pulled over to the side. I got out of the car, leaving the door open behind me, walked up the pathway that Johnny's dad built a few summers ago, and knocked on the door. I waited a minute and began hearing the deadbolt of the old door creak as it was being unlocked. The knob with its small oxidized patches began to turn, and before I knew it, Johnny was standing there, wearing a ripped pair of blue jeans, a shirt with the logo from the Misfits, a band that he really enjoyed, and his Chuck Taylor Converse laced up. His hair was what it normally was, a mess of brown, long, and oily strands that had a slight wave to it, and of course, who could forget the patchy goatee. "Marky, did you see they found 2 more bodies today? This is insane. Do you think..." "Come on, Johnny, we're going to be late," I said, knowing the next words out of his mouth were going to be something I really didn't even want to think about. Johnny felt his pockets and then said, "Let's go." "Your coat, Johnny," I said. "Oh," he said and turned back and snatched a blackish trench-style coat off the rack, stepped out, closed the door, and locked it. We made our way back down the pathway when I hear Johnny say, "Shotgun," then ran down the path next to me and jumped in the door I left open. I got in the car and Jen pulled off. I guess they had already exchanged pleasantries. So do you think we'll find him? Johnny said. I don't know. I hope so, Jen said. Johnny, how do we get to Hyde Park from here? She asked. Johnny said, you'll keep going down this street until it dead ends into Hyde Road. Then you just go straight and it'll be on the left, Johnny replied. I looked at the time, 4:50 p.m. We made our way a few blocks down and then turned onto Hyde Road, then turned into the parking lot about 5 minutes later. We all got out of the car and Jen locked the car behind us. A group of people were already gathered. We made our way over to the group and funneled in with the crowd. I saw a lot of fellow students, a good amount of adults, and a slew of law enforcement. I also saw these guys wearing these red vests labeled Search and Rescue in large reflective print. Okay, everyone, a voice echoed over a megaphone. Thank you all for turning up here to help us find Kyle Johnston. If you haven't had a chance to review the flyer, please come look at it before making your way out. Kyle is 15 years old, 5'7" with a stocky build. He is estimated to weigh around 160 pounds and was last seen wearing a blue jacket and cargo-style pants. He has dark brown, almost black hair, and the only identifying mark according to his family is a quarter-sized birthmark on his right bicep. We're going to fan out and do everything we can until either he or his body is found. His body? Johnny said, and without even thinking about it, I slapped his arm. We're going to divide and conquer. We estimate there are about 80 volunteers here, so we're all going to break into groups of 20. Each group will be assigned a direction, and you will each be paired with a member of local law enforcement, as well as our search and rescue team. All right, let's split up, look around to the largest marker flags that you can see that are the closest towards you. I looked around and there was 4 large flags identifying each search party. Johnny, Jen, and I made our way to a blue-colored flag, and when we got there, a voice said, Okay, everyone, we're going to head west into the wooded area. Please try to keep with the group, as there are a lot of drop-offs, a lot of downed trees. We're going to spread out and cover a wide area, but not too far out. Make sure you can still see another member of the party, as it'll be getting dark soon. So before you go, please grab a reflective vest. And are there any questions? Nobody responded. All right, let's get to it, the leader said. When we got there, we all stood at the wood line and began to fan out. Johnny and Jim were a little bit ahead of me, as I tended to stay towards the back of the pack. As we all got into position, I looked to my left, and there was Adam, followed by Jen and Johnny. To my right, great, it was Derek. The leader said, Let's go, and we made our way into the woods. These woods were pretty large. I'd say they stretched out about 4 miles. I've been back here before, but not in a long time. We all began making our way into the woods, and once we were about 300 feet in, the calls of Kyle began to echo out throughout the woods. I looked at my watch, 5:32 p.m. About a half hour went by and the light was beginning to fade out. Usually, it didn't get dark here until about 7 p.m. this time of the year, but with the thick woods and the still overcast weather, the light began to fade quickly. I reached under my vest into my jacket pocket and pulled out the flashlight that we got from Jen's house. I clicked it on, and with a few flickers, it popped on. I continued on. As the final bit of light began to fade away, and the darkness of night fell over the now dense woods, the calls of Kyle continued to pour out into the woods, with the creatures now beginning to come alive. We had been out there for about an hour at this point, and there were no signs of him. As I was making my way through the woods, looking around with my flashlight, I guess I wasn't paying much attention. As I was looking around, my foot got caught under a fallen branch, and I tumbled down, flat onto my face. I felt radiating pain coming from my chin area, where a cut had formed, and blood slowly began to trickle down my chin and onto my neck. My hands were covered in mud and dead leaves, and my foot throbbed up along my ankle. I let out an audible shit. I heard leaves begin rustling and steps heading my way. Mark, a voice called out. Have a nice trip, Marky, a voice behind me said. I looked back and it was Derek, being what he normally is, an asshole. I began to sit up on my hands and knees, and the next thing I knew, a foot was placed on my side, which proceeded to thrust me back down. That's what you get for fucking with me, fag. Don't ever fucking think about testing me again, boy, Derek said. What the hell are you doing? Said the same familiar voice from earlier. It was Adam. He shoved Derek back. I looked up to see Adam and Derek face to face. What is he, your boyfriend now, Adam? Derek said. Just leave him alone, Adam snapped back. Whatever, enjoy your fag time, Derek said back as he chuckled and walked off. What the hell is your problem? I heard a voice say. It was Jen as her and Johnny were jogging over. Derek just looked over and kept walking. I rolled over onto my butt and sat up, staring at the ground. Hey man, are you okay? Adam said as he squatted down. Yeah, I said back. Hey man, I'm sorry about what he said earlier in the gym. It's cool man, don't worry about it. Mark, are you okay? Johnny said as he bent down in front of me. I felt a hand on my shoulder, and it was Jen. Ouch, she said. That cut looks pretty gnarly. I think you'll be okay, but let's get you cleaned up. Does anyone have anything? Jen said to us. Here, I got this. Adam dug into his pocket and pulled out a bandana. I'm sorry, Mark. I've been using it as a sweat rag, but I've only used it a couple times. It'll do. Thank you, Jen said. Jen gently placed her hand onto my forehead, which was in itself sweaty, and pushed my head back gently. She looked around and saw Adam's water bottle. She took her hand off my head, grabbed his water bottle, and poured a small amount of water onto the bandana. She closed it and handed it back to Adam. I don't know, guys. I think he's coding, Johnny said in his sarcastic voice. I cracked a smile. Jen put her hand back on my forehead and pushed it back gently and began to dot the bandana on my wound. Ouch, I said quietly as the bandana made contact with my wound. I'm sorry, was that too hard? Jen said. No, it's just aching. You're fine, I replied. Looks like we lost the group, Adam said. Mark, how's your ankle? Can you walk on it? He asked. Yeah, I think it's okay. Thank you, I replied. Well, let's take a second. If we need to head back towards Hyde, we can, Adam said. Jen handed him his bandana back. Thank you, kind sir, for checking on him. No problem, Adam said. I'm Adam. He reached out his hand. I'm Marie, but you can call me Jen. She reached out her hand and shook his. Adam looked up. And you're Johnny, right? Yeah, what's up, Adam? How you been? Good, man. Good, he replied. So, Mark, what do you want to do? Johnny asked. I looked over to him, but something else caught my attention. Standing about 50 feet away behind Johnny and amongst the trees, I saw a glimpse of something. Jen, let me see your flashlight, I said as she proceeded to hand it to me. I think the battery's dying, she said as it exchanged hands. It was flickering, so I gently tapped it a few times on the side. As I did this, it flashed on and off until finally it cut on and stayed on. I repositioned it into my hand like I was a cop or something. I pointed it to the left and slowly panned it to the right. What is it, Mark? Jen said. I thought I saw... There it was. As I panned the flashlight, I saw it. A tall, human-like figure, completely black, standing not 50 feet away from us. Its eyes glowing red as it stared at us. My heart began to beat faster and faster, and my hands began to shake. I panned the flashlight down, and there was a young boy standing in front of it, its hands on the boy's shoulders. It didn't register at first, but it was Kyle. His mouth was moving, but oh God, oh no. He was stone-faced and puffy-eyed like he had been up for days. His lips, they were saying, help me. G. I stuttered but couldn't find the words. Before I could get the words out, the flashlight began to flicker again. I slapped it and the damn thing went out, then came back finally. I was able to get out. Guys! As I said this, the group turned towards what I was looking at. But I hadn't found it again, so they couldn't see it. They looked back at me. Mark, what is it? Mark, what do you see? Mark! Finally, I found it again, standing there with Kyle, my hands trembling as the light bounced off of them. Before I could say a word, Its dark shadow hand wrapped its way around Kyle's neck. As it did this, Kyle's eyes got large, like two moons in the night sky. Then the thing opened its mouth and proceeded to grin, like a tiger when it's got its prey. Its large teeth stained with, I don't know what, were bouncing off the light. In a split second, the two of them vanished, and I had had enough. I dropped the flashlight, got up, turned away, and began to run. Mark! Stop! Mark! The others called out, but I wasn't listening. I was in a full-out sprint back towards Hyde Park, my arms pumping, my blood racing, and my breathing labored. I hadn't run like this in years. Mark, stop! They continued to yell as they chased after me. My heart was beating so fast and my lungs were barely taking in air at this point. I started to slow down as I finally made my way back into Hyde Park. I collapsed from exhaustion. I must have run 2 miles in that time. Slowly, the others, Adam, Jen, and Johnny, emerged from the woods. Tears were slowly coming down my face. I was hyperventilating and laboring to breathe. No, it can't be that. It was my imagination, I said to myself. Mark, what the hell is the matter with you? Jen said sternly. Yeah, man, what did you see? What spooked you? Adam said. Johnny stayed quiet, panting and sweaty, but quiet. I rolled over onto my back, sat up and looked around, and at the three of them staring at me, still panting myself, I looked at Johnny. Mark, he said as his panting began to slow down. Johnny, I said, it's got Kyle. Johnny's face went stone. What's got Kyle? Jen asked. I looked at her and then at Adam and back at Johnny. Are you sure? He mouthed to me. I nodded my head yes to him. Oh my God, he said softly. What the hell are you guys talking about? Adam said, still puzzled. Someone say something, Adam implied. Johnny took a step towards us and said, it's back. I don't know how or when, but it's back, and it's got Kyle.